Usually when a major software platform rolls out, like a fundamental architecture update, it's basically impossible to ignore.
Right. You get the massive flashing red banners pinned to the top of your dashboard.
Exactly. You get those mandatory, unskippable pop-ups every single time you log in. The platform wants to make absolutely certain, things are changing.
Yeah, they don't let you miss it.
But then you step into the world of e-commerce right now, specifically what's happening with Shopify checkouts, and that flashing red banner is just missing.
It's completely absent.
We are looking at a fundamental shift in how online storefronts process billions of dollars in transactions. And for a huge percentage of merchants, the failure state isn't a crashed website or, an error code. It's just total terrifying silence.
It really is the textbook definition of a silent failure. And I mean, that is exactly what makes this specific transition so uniquely dangerous.
Because it just looks fine on the surface, right?
Yeah. Right. If you aren't actively digging into your back-end configurations, you could be losing a massive percentage of your revenue. And your checkout never even actually looks broken.
Oh, wow. Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are cutting through the noise and the silence, honestly, to figure out exactly what is going on with this Shopify checkout migration.
Yeah, there's a lot to untangle here.
We've got a fantastic, comprehensive 17-minute read as our source material today, and our mission is to break down exactly what breaks, why the old architecture is being burned to the ground, and map out a practical migration path for you to keep your storefront alive.
And we really need to anchor ourselves in the timeline right away because the calendar is basically everything today.
Yes, exactly. Today is July 10th, 2026. And this date is critical, right? Because for a certain tier of Shopify merchants, the point of no return has already completely passed.
Yeah, they're already on the other side of it.
But for another massive group of businesses, the real cliff is looming just weeks away on August 26, 2026.
The clock is either already at zero or you're in the final countdown. It depends entirely on which specific Shopify plan you're actually paying for.
Right.
That distinction changes your entire reality right now.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can talk about how to fix a broken checkout, we have to define what is actually breaking. And like you said, that completely depends on the plan.
This is where we hit the absolute biggest misconception in the e-commerce space today. I mean, it's everywhere.
What are people getting wrong?
Well, if a merchant has been frantically Googling how to save their checkout, they have undoubtedly seen 100 panic-inducing articles screaming about the death of a file called checkout.liquid.
Right, checkout.liquid. That's the big buzzword.
It is. But what most of those articles fail to mention is that they're totally mixing up their audiences. Here's the reality. Checkout.liquid was only ever a Shopify Plus feature.
Wait, really? So if a merchant is on, the basic, grow, or advanced plan, they never even had access to this file?
Precisely. They literally never had it. But because checkout.liquid became this terrifying catch-all buzzword for legacy checkouts across the whole industry, you have thousands of non-Plus merchants chasing a ghost.
Oh, man. So they're panicking over nothing.
Basically, yeah. They're wasting time trying to figure out how to migrate off a layout file they never possessed in the first place.
That is wild. But, it makes sense why the panic spread. Let's separate the two camps then. For the merchants who actually did have that file, the Shopify Plus users, what's their status sitting here in July 2026?
For Plus merchants, the deadline is entirely in the rearview mirror. Back on August 28, 2025, Shopify officially sunset the old thank you and order status pages.
Okay, so that was phase one.
Right. And then, starting in January 2026, they began forcing automatic upgrades. If you were on Plus and you hadn't manually migrated your custom checkout.liquid code to the new system, those customizations were simply paved over.
Just gone.
Just gone. Paved over.
So for Plus users, you're already living in the new world. Your job now is basically just assessing the damage and rebuilding whatever got wiped out.
Exactly.
But that brings us back to the non-Plus users, the basic, grow, and advanced plans. If they didn't have checkout.liquid, how were they customizing their checkouts this whole time?
Their exposure is entirely different. For non-Plus merchants, customizations lived inside something called the additional scripts field.
Additional scripts. Okay.
Yeah, and alongside that, various apps injected what are known as script tags directly onto the thank you and order status pages. That was the primary method for adding marketing tracking pixels, custom messages, or post-purchase surveys.
I want to try an analogy here to sort of visualize this shift because we're talking about moving from these legacy checkouts to this entirely new architecture called checkout extensibility.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Imagine your legacy checkout the old way is like painting a beautiful, highly customized mural directly onto the drywall of an apartment you rent. You painted it, it looks incredible, it serves your business.
But you don't own the building.
Exactly. The landlord is Shopify. And occasionally, Shopify needs to come in and do maintenance. They need to upgrade the plumbing behind that wall to make it more secure.
Right, they have to update the core code.
And because your custom code is painted directly onto the drywall, meaning it sits directly inside the core theme files when Shopify updates the checkout, they might accidentally smash a pipe wrench right through your beautiful mural.
That perfectly illustrates why the old theme-based architecture was inherently fragile. Every time Shopify wanted to roll out a global security patch or a new payment method, they had to worry about breaking tens of thousands of highly fragile, custom-painted murals.
It must have been a nightmare for their engineers.
It was a massive development bottleneck for the entire platform.
Right. So this new system, checkout Extensibility, is the landlord stepping in and saying, no more painting the drywall. From now on, you have to paint your art on these framed canvases and hang them safely on top of the wall. That way, when Shopify comes in to update the core checkout behind the scenes, they just reach around your framed pictures. Your custom apps and extensions sit in a safe, isolated little sandbox, completely unharmed by platform updates.
That is exactly the shift, moving from a fragile, theme-based layout to a resilient, app-based sandbox. The ultimate goal is to make all customizations upgrade safe.
But I have to push back here. If non-Plus users never had the delicate drywall mural of checkout.liquid and their customizations were just these little tracking scripts pasted into a box, why are they the ones facing the cliff right now? What's their deadline?
Their deadline is August 26, 2026, next month.
Okay, so it is coming up fast.
Very fast.
Right.
And the panic is justified because they relied heavily on that additional scripts field to run their marketing engines. On that August deadline, Shopify is going to force upgrade their thank you and order status pages to the new Extensibility framework.
And what happens to the scripts field?
That old scripts field is just going away.
Which brings us to the most terrifying part of this entire architectural shift. Because since non-Plus users didn't lose a visual layout file, the thing that breaks on August 26 is completely invisible to the naked eye.
Invisible, but absolute devastating to a merchant's bottom line.
Right. So what exactly happens on that day?
What's fascinating here is how deceptive this deadline is for a merchant who isn't technically inclined. Let's imagine it is August 27, 2026. The deadline has passed.
Okay, I'm a merchant. I'm checking my store.
Right, you want to see if your store survives. So you go to your own website, add a product to your cart, enter your credit card, and hit purchase. You see the thank you page? The payment processes flawlessly. The customer experience is completely uninterrupted.
Wait, so what broke?
The tracking. When a legacy checkout hits that deadline, the additional scripts field doesn't trigger an error message. It simply goes read-only.
Read-only. It just stops.
It just stops. Every single JavaScript snippet inside of your Facebook pixel, your Google Analytics tag, your TikTok tracker just silently stops executing.
The silent killer. Wow. Let's really dig into the mechanics of this. Why is that silent failure so catastrophic? Because we're talking about the lifeblood of e-commerce marketing analytics here.
We are talking about severing the entire feedback loop of a business. Think about middle funnel and bottom funnel tracking events.
Stuff like begin checkout or add payment info.
Exactly. And most importantly, purchase. Those data points are the signals that tell advertising algorithms exactly who is buying your products.
Okay, so if the additional scripts field goes read-only, Meta and Google suddenly go completely blind to anything that happens after a customer clicks the checkout button.
Exactly. And it's not just that the script stops firing. Shopify has fundamentally clamped down on how personal data is handled.
What do you mean?
Well, in the old days, those legacy scripts could basically scrape the web page. They could read the customer's email address, their phone number, their name, and send it back to Facebook to match the purchase to a user profile.
Oh, that sounds like a privacy nightmare.
It was. Shopify has rightfully decided that allowing third-party scripts to scrape personal data off a checkout page is a massive security and privacy liability. So they cut off that data flow entirely.
Which creates a death spiral for your ads. If Meta can't see the conversions, it assumes the ads aren't working.
Right.
And when the algorithm thinks the ads are failing, it stops showing them to the right people, which actually causes your real revenue to plummet.
Precisely. There are audits happening right now showing that the gap between Shopify's actual back-end order counts and the conversions being reported in the ad platforms can hit 30% or higher when these scripts fail.
30%. You cannot run a profitable e-commerce business when nearly a third of your successful sales are totally invisible to your marketing engine.
You really can't. You're flying completely blind.
We're talking about high-volume stores potentially losing 15 to 20% of their total top-line revenue simply because they fell into this reporting gap. This is why you cannot wait for a warning pop-up.
No, because your business will bleed out silently before you even realize the tracking is broken.
It's a phenomenal example of how deeply interconnected the modern e-commerce stack is. A tiny piece of invisible JavaScript stops firing on a thank you page, and a month later, a multi-million-dollar business has to lay off staff because its customer acquisition costs doubled overnight.
Yeah, the domino effect is brutal.
So the old way of injecting wild code into the checkout is dead. To plug this massive tracking hole and to allow merchants to rebuild their custom checkout experiences safely, Shopify hasn't just patched the old system.
No, they have rolled out an entirely new, incredibly strict ecosystem. Let's look at the new sandbox.
It is a complete paradigm shift. Instead of a one-size-fits-all code box, Shopify has built a stack of highly specialized tools.
You have to use the exact right tool for this specific problem you're trying to solve.
Let's approach this from the perspective of a merchant trying to fix their store. The most urgent fire is that silent tracking gap we just talked about. How do we fix the analytics without violating Shopify's new privacy rules?
That is where the WebPixels API comes in. This is the sandbox replacement for all those legacy tracking scripts.
How is it different from the old way?
Instead of injecting a script that indiscriminately scrapes the HTML of the checkout page, the WebPixels API works entirely differently. It runs in an isolated environment. It has no access to the web page's document object model, or DOM.
Okay, so it can't just read whatever it wants.
Right. Instead, Shopify securely packages up specific customer events like item added or checkout completed and hands those encrypted data packets directly to your tracking pixel.
So it's controlled handover. Shopify acts as the bouncer. Meta says, hey, did this person buy something? And Shopify says, yes, here is the anonymized confirmation, without letting Meta wander around the checkout page looking at credit cards.
Exactly. It ensures your analytics report correctly to Google Tag Manager or Klaviyo, but it fundamentally protects the buyer's privacy and the platform's security.
Okay, tracking is fixed. But what if I want to change how the checkout actually looks? Say I want to add a custom field asking for a gift message, or I want to put a big warning banner that says, expect shipping delays due to weather. Where does that live?
For front-end visuals, you use Checkout UI extensions. This tool is specifically for adding functional elements to the checkout flow or the post-checkout pages.
And those are sandboxed too.
Yes. Again, these run in a strict sandbox, completely isolated from the core payment processing code. If your custom gift message banner crashes, the rest of the checkout keeps working perfectly.
And what about the complex back-end rules? Let's say I'm selling something highly regulated, like a certain type of battery, and I need logic that physically prevents a customer from completing the checkout if they enter a shipping address in Alaska or Hawaii.
Visuals won't help you there. For that, you need Shopify functions. While UI extensions handle the look, functions handle the invisible back-end logic.
So that's the brains behind the operation.
Exactly. This is where you build custom rules for complex discounts, specialized shipping rates, or payment validations. You're essentially writing logic that executes directly on Shopify's servers during the checkout process.
Okay. And there are also specific tools just for the post-purchase experience, right? Like if I want to hit the customer with a one-click upsell exactly 5 seconds after their credit card clears.
Yes, those are handled by post-purchase extensions, which inject offers right between the payment clearing and the final confirmation.
Nice. And the last tool.
Finally, for the non-plus merchants staring down that August deadline, you have the thank you and order status extensions, which are exclusively for customizing those final 2 receipt pages.
Okay, so that is the new toolkit, but I want to zero in on the strict boundaries of this new sandbox, because there's a specific platform limit on those checkout UI extensions that honestly stop me in my tracks.
Bundle size limit.
Wait, 64 kilobytes. A compiled UI extension bundle cannot exceed 64 kilobytes.
It cannot.
In 2026, an average product image is 3 times larger than that. Does this mean that heavy, feature-packed, beautifully designed custom widgets are just totally banned from the checkout now?
That is exactly what it means. It is a hard, unyielding platform limit. It does not matter if you hire the most brilliant engineering team on the planet. If the compiled code for your checkout widget is 65 kilobytes, Shopify servers will outright reject it. It will not load.
But how are merchants supposed to brand their checkouts? How do I enforce my brand guidelines, load in my custom typography, or implement my high-resolution logos if I only have 64 kilobytes of space to build the widget?
Ah, that's the brilliant part of how they split the architecture. You don't use UI extensions for branding anymore. Shopify has built a native checkout editor.
Oh, so the branding is handled separately.
Exactly. All of the visual styling, the exact hex codes for your buttons, the custom fonts, the logo placements, is handled natively inside that editor. By stripping all the heavy styling requirements out of the custom code, it forces the UI extensions to be strictly functional. They're nothing but lightweight, hyper-efficient logic.
Wow. So they're essentially enforcing good performance. What other hard limits exist in the sandbox?
The isolation is absolute. Extensions cannot talk to each other, they cannot share memory, they absolutely cannot access sensitive payment information, which removes a massive vector for credit card skimming.
That's a huge security win.
It is. And perhaps most importantly for the stability of the platform, Shopify enforces brutal rate limiting. If you build a custom extension that gets stuck in a loop and starts making too many network requests, Shopify doesn't let it freeze the buyer's screen.
What do they do?
It just instantly kills the extension, leaving the core checkout perfectly intact.
They've wrapped the core checkout engine in Kevlar, and they only let developers interact with it through these tiny, heavily regulated 64 kilobyte windows.
Precisely. Which brings us to the reality check of this situation. Now that we understand the tools and the constraints, the obvious next questions for any merchant are, how much is this going to cost me, and what exactly do I need to do to migrate before the deadline?
Let's talk about the bill and the blueprint. Based on the market data we are seeing right now in July 2026, merchants essentially have three paths to choose from. Let's start with path one, the no-code or app route.
This is the path for the vast majority of businesses. It covers about 80% of what merchants used to do with their legacy scripts.
How does it work in practice?
You leverage that native checkout editor we just talked about for your branding, and then you install subscription apps like Checkout Blocks or Quickify to handle the specific UI extensions or post-purchase upsells.
And the financial damage for that route.
Highly manageable. You're looking at standard app subscription fees, usually somewhere between $29 and $99 a month. And because it's app-based, a merchant can configure and launch this within a few days.
Okay, but what if a merchant falls into that remaining 20%? What if they have a highly complex proprietary business model, maybe a unique B2B wholesale logic that an off-the-shelf $29 app just cannot handle?
Then they're forced onto path 2 custom development. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the industry is experiencing massive sticker shock.
Why is it so expensive now?
Because building custom checkout extensions is no longer just logging into the Shopify admin, clicking edit code, and pasting a snippet of JavaScript you found on a forum.
Right. I've heard developers talking about needing the Shopify CLI for this. So we're talking about command line interfaces now. We're moving from the wild west of copy-pasting code into a terminal environment.
Exactly. Building a custom extension requires a formal software development environment. You need developers working in a local terminal, using the Shopify command line interface. You need version control via GitHub. You need staging environments. It is a rigorous engineering process now.
And formal software engineering comes with formal software engineering price tags.
It does. Simple custom builds, maybe a unique validation rule, are running between $5,000 and $10,000, taking a few weeks.
Ouch. And the complex ones?
Complex, multi-layered custom checkouts. Those projects can easily exceed $50,000 and take up to 4 months of development time.
50 grand to customize a checkout flow. That is a serious capital expenditure and, frankly, a deal breaker for a lot of mid-market brands, which makes Path 3 look incredibly appealing.
Path 3 is the easiest of all. Drop the customizations entirely.
Just walk away from them.
Yeah. Except the standard, lightning-fast, native Shopify checkout. It costs you absolutely nothing, it requires zero maintenance, and it guarantees you are always on the most secure version of the platform.
Okay, so we know the paths. How do we actually execute the migration? What is the blueprint?
Step 1 applies to absolutely everyone listening right now, regardless of your plan. Go into your Shopify admin dashboard, click on Settings, navigate down to Checkout, click into Configurations, and run the upgrade report.
So you have to see where you actually stand first.
Right. You need to definitively prove your status and see exactly what legacy code is currently active.
Step 2 is mapping the territory. You have to inventory everything, list every single custom field, every warning banner, every discount script, and every third-party app currently touching your checkout or your post-purchase pages.
You cannot safely rebuild a house if you don't have the original blueprints.
Exactly.
Step 3 is selecting your route, whether that's the app route or custom development. But step 4 is crucial. You build this new setup in a draft configuration. Do not build this live on your active storefront.
Right, don't break the live site. Step 5 is testing. And not just testing that the buttons work, you must test your new extensions in that simulated draft environment, and you have to test them specifically against ShopPay.
Yes, that's a big one. You need to ensure your customizations actually display correctly during those accelerated express checkouts.
Okay, so we've drafted, we've tested. What's step 6?
Step 6. Before you even hover your mouse over the Publish button, you restore your tracking. You must re-implement Google Tag Manager, Meta, and Klaviyo through that new Web Pixels API we discussed.
Right, fix the silent killer.
Exactly. You have to ensure those isolated, secure data payloads are successfully firing. If you skip this step, you instantly trigger that silent 30% tracking loss we talked about earlier.
Finally, step 7, you publish the draft, replace the active configuration, and then you run that checkout upgrade report one more time to verify that the legacy warning is gone for good.
It's a methodical, multi-step process, but it's entirely achievable if you respect the timeline and don't leave it to the last minute.
So what does this all mean for you right now?
Yeah.
If you take absolutely nothing else away from this deep dive, remember this specific plan. Check your specific Shopify plan today and know your exact deadline.
Do not put this off.
If you are on a basic, grow, or advanced plan, you are staring down the barrel of August 26, 2026. Do not wait for a warning pop-up to save you, because it is never going to come. The failure of your tracking scripts will be completely silent.
Yeah, that silence is deadly.
By the time you notice your ad revenue dropping, you will already be weeks behind and bleeding cash. Go into your admin, run your upgrade report, and secure your tracking today.
It's a daunting migration, but it raises an important question to think about. We've spent this entire time dissecting how restrictive this new sandbox is. The unyielding 64 kilobyte bundle limits, the inability to touch the core payment flow, the absolute isolation of the apps. It feels incredibly frustrating for merchants who are used to having total unregulated control over their theme files.
Yeah, it feels like a huge loss of freedom.
But could this massive platform restriction actually be a hidden blessing? By forcibly burning down the old system and stripping out all those bloated, slow-loading third-party tracking widgets and massive, unoptimized design files, Shopify is essentially forcing merchants to offer a significantly faster, mathematically more secure, and ultimately higher converting checkout experience.
Oh, that's a fascinating way to look at it.
An experience that, honestly, many merchants simply would never have had the technical discipline to implement on their own.
Sometimes you need the landlord to tell you to stop painting the walls so the house doesn't fall down. Listener, thank you for learning with us today. Go check your admin settings right now, protect your data tracking, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.